Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on Episode 3 of Konosuba Season 2. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So weird as it is to say for Kazuma, things are kinda looking up, His trial's been deferred or postponed, whatever the legal term is, and, unions around is sort of like, a general thing for everyone to pick on. And he seems to be indulging in the habit of blowing things up with Megumin, which I feel like, judging by that sign, there's going to be legal consequences. I mean, it was already sort of made pretty clear that Megumin blowing things up is something people weren't too happy about when Kazuma was in prison. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop here. Now that exclamation of, I can't keep going along with this, I feel like maybe life isn't as good as he was projecting it. I mean, I do know they are all crippled by debt, mainly Kazuma, and I guess that's why he's bringing up going to a dungeon. I mean, that's not a good idea. They don't have darkness with them, and it's not like she's a real boon or anything, but, even so, one man down, that's not good. And I guess that makes sense, when the alternative is starving to death, maybe going ill-prepared into a dungeon isn't that bad. So that's interesting. They're going to a thoroughly explored beginner's dungeon. But, well, it seems as though there's a twist, a secret passage opened up and now they need a team to go and survey the whole place. So, I guess the idea here is that this is basically as ideal a scenario as you could possibly get. It's a beginner's dungeon, so there's not liable to be much around that'll kill you. And at the same time, there's an undiscovered portion, meaning there's likely all sorts of treasure and stuff, so, in all likelihood, Kazuma can get out of this considerably wealthier than when he went in. It might not erase his debts, but I mean, he's saying it best right here. We can't afford to screw this up. So I guess the big question is, how do they screw this up? Because, it's nearly a certainty at this point. I mean, obviously Aqua's going to do something stupid, but does Megumin crack off an explosion in confined spaces? I feel like she's gotta, And, You know, you really shouldn't set off explosions in confined spaces. It's really not a good idea. So that's actually interesting. Kazma's got kind of a good idea here. He's going in solo and telling everyone else to wait outside. Perhaps because, yeah, here we go. He's saying, he's got like the rogue skills to lurk around and be sneaky. So if nothing else, he can get in and out undetected. But this has the secondary benefit of preventing Aqua and Megumin from screwing things up, assuming they just stay outside. Now, you know what? Like, this is very clearly CG right here, but I think that's actually a pretty good use of it, because this is essentially Kazuma using magic to see the way. Now, Kazuma hasn't quite noticed yet, but he kind of told Aqua to wait outside, and she's clearly ignoring that. And I feel like if Aqua goes in, Megumin's not going to be too far behind. Which, I guess sort of defeats the purpose of telling them to wait outside so they don't cause trouble. So that's interesting, I guess. Aqua can see in the dark, kind of, but I feel like at this point none of it really matters, because I don't think they're in the unexplored portions yet. They just sort of went in the main entrance. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting thing Aqua's bringing up, that a lot of Kazuma's skills for stealth won't really work on the undead since they don't have traditional senses that can be fooled. So I'm wondering if Megumin's actually just cracking off the explosion already. I mean, she's obviously practicing her, ever-changing monologue. I mean, you've got to keep it fresh, you can't just say the same thing over and over again. But I feel like it's kind of a waste just to crack it off in basically like an open space without anything to blow up. So it seems as though Aqua might have been right in that there seemed to be undead. And, yeah, I mean, at least she's around to handle it, I suppose. I find it interesting that they're both poking at each other saying, like, you're scared. No, you're scared. It's kind of like they both protest a little too much. That seems to have struck a nerve, that Kazuma would abandon Aqua deep in a dungeon and leave her. I mean, obviously Aqua wants him to play it off as a joke, but like, honestly, that might not be a bad way to ditch her, He wouldn't have to worry about all the debt she accrues. Oh dear. Unfortunately, Aqua doesn't quite understand being quiet and using hand signals. I mean, I guess it's to be expected with her intelligence of, like, 3. So this is probably the scariest outcome. They didn't see what the creature was that attacked them. Like, they saw a little bit, but not exactly what it is, and that's probably scarier than knowing exactly what you're dealing with. Ooh. Man, it's rather uncomfortable that we have to bring up the rustling in the stable again, although at least it's good Aqua wasn't paying too much attention. Otherwise, she'd probably never let him live it down. Man, for an ostensibly unexplored portion of the dungeon, then there are a lot of dead bodies. Which, I feel like Cosmo should take that as a bad sign. You know, if they've found somebody who died and this was previously undiscovered, then that means somebody learned of it and did not live to tell the tale. So that means there has to be something reasonably dangerous. Yeah, you know, Aqua's really not thinking ahead here. You probably shouldn't make fun of somebody who has credibly threatened to abandon her in the dungeon. You know, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. You know, thinking about it a little bit more, I'm pretty sure Kazuma and company probably aren't really that good of a choice for cataloging the dungeon and mapping it out. Because, you know, they're not exactly known for their attention to detail and stuff like that. Because ideally you would want, like, a reasonably accurate map. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be, like, a good starting place for other people to continue to refine. But, I don't know if that's what the guild's gonna get. Wow. Now that's something, alright. I don't think I've ever seen a mimic quite like that. That is gnarly. Oh dear. Some mimics pretend to be humans so they can prey on monsters. That's something. I feel like this is just the setup for, Aqua, Cosmo, and Megumin to all accuse each other of being a mimic. Now, we did get a little glimpse of Darkness. She seems to be having a rough go of things. But seeing as how she appears to be fighting back, nobody's really doing anything untoward to her, otherwise she would be enjoying it. So I think it's safe to assume whatever is happening, the ominous lighting is making something entirely mundane seem, well, probably more interesting than it really is. Now, it is kind of rare for Aqua to be in her element, you know, fighting the undead and being able to easily vanquish them. I feel like, it's really just going to inflate her ego. You know, no good's gonna come out of this even though she has been beneficial. And Cosmo's making a good point here. You know, the presence of undead, and a lot of them, like, that doesn't bode well. You know, like, worst case scenario, the undead, or rather the dead aren't able to pass on to the afterlife, hence becoming undead, or there's a necromancer deliberately raising them, which, you know, that's no good either. And I guess we kind of have our answer now. You know, the dungeon was actually named after a guy. So I'm wondering if this guy's gonna end up like that engineer who built the destroyer. You know, he didn't really know how to turn it off, and he just sort of like let it rampage. So this guy wants to marry the king's daughter. And I guess, it sounds like he was kind of tactless about the whole thing, hence why he had to build a dungeon. It's telling that this guy doesn't seem to be remarkably evil, but Aqua is nonetheless dead set on banishing him. I mean, the guy just seems to be, pretty harmless. I mean, I guess, he does have, the corpse of his wife, I suppose. If you're an undead wizard, surely you could raise your wife, too, or provide some form of immortality. Alright, well, I take that back. I guess we're taking a sentimental sort of take on this whole thing. He just wants to pass on, and he needs a sufficiently strong priest to do it. I mean, I guess sort of, fulfilling his last wish is no bad thing, but the guy is, pretty affable for the undead. So that's interesting. It was Aqua's presence that essentially woke him out of his torpor. So I guess in some sort of weird roundabout way, Aqua being dragged here was a good thing, even if Kazuma only did it out of spite initially. Now, something tells me, despite the sincerity of this scene, something's gonna happen. Konosuba can't end on a sincere note. Alright, well, I guess that's that. I'm glad that this whole thing was played sincerely. It would be kind of cruel to make a joke out of it after, Keel, the wizard, essentially being not a bad guy. Okay, so, what's the angle here? Is Kazuma just sort of blaming this whole thing on Aqua? Oh, okay. I'm seeing what he's putting down. The Dullahan went after Aqua. These undead here were going after Aqua. She's basically a zombie magnet. And, yeah, Kazuma, I think he's got the right idea. Ditching her would draw all the undead here and leave everyone else alone. Yeah, what? As funny as it would be to sort of abandon her, you probably can't get away with it for too long. This isn't that big a dungeon, as we have been led to believe, so, eventually, surely, by dumb luck, she'd find her way out. And I guess as funny as it would be, it wouldn't be very nice, I guess. So they really did just leave Megumin out here the entire time. And it looks like they really took the whole day. So I guess the question is, what did she do? Was she just, practicing her monologue this whole time? Surely she didn't even blow anything up, right? With no one around to witness her explosion? Yeah, that's kind of a rude thing, that Aqua should take a lesson in spiritual purity from that undead lich. I mean, Kazuma's right in the fundamentals, I guess, but, man, that's a low blow. So I guess this is sort of the fundamental issue that everyone keeps running into. You know, Kazuma says, this is going towards our debt to pay it off, but Aqua wants to drink more and eat more and spend the money. They really shouldn't do that, you know? And I guess what's worse is that Yun is sort of like sitting outside watching this like an orphan watching a family have Christmas dinner. I mean, let the poor girl in. Oh, Kazuma. Oh, dear. He opened his big mouth, and just like that, I'm pretty sure the entire fortune is gone. You know, whatever money they made in the dungeon, like, it's all gone. And you know what? It would really add insult to injury if perhaps, you know, they ended up spending even more money than they brought in. I guess he's in too good of a mood to really care about it, but, man. It's interesting how everybody wants to make a spectacle of the whole stealing thing, but I guess old habits die hard. Oh, this is bad. I mean, Cosmo's trying to keep Megumin away from the beer, and now Yun's just enabling her. I mean, thank God, I guess they all spilled, otherwise things would have gotten really dicey. I imagine a drunk Megumin would probably blow up the town. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.